All right, it's pretty obvious that more than one of my witnesses. Sorry, I'm sure you guys don't want to just stare at my beard. I told true stories, and people just didn't understand the impact of it. There's a woman who I've been letting know about this, and well, she's had to go through a lot of her own personal stuff. She also understands about a lot of the stuff that I've gone through. She's also been in situations similar to Natalie's, and she's speaking up. She's one of the people I posted up. There were three missing people that I posted up about the day that Natalie disappeared. And two of those people I've been trying to get, hey, could you speak up? One of them was Shauna Sinclair, and well, I'd helped her out more than once. She'd been a hero to my friend Todd. She'd helped him out of some scrapes. And we learned as a homeless community that we do need to work together or we're all screwed. When it comes to missing children, it's not something I fuck around about. So when Shauna Sinclair's daughter was stolen, I did make a post about it. And this other lady, she messaged some stuff to me. Um, let's see. I suppose I should read this. She types, I can see that. Sadly, many victims end up becoming abusers. They may not carry out the same forms of abuse that was put upon them. And that's very true. Um, a lot of women who were victims of male abuse, their predator was male. They become abusers later in life as well, but they are able to do it differently, especially if they're young and pretty. It's easy to manipulate people into doing what you want. It's easy to get people to hate somebody that you've done something wrong and you don't think that you should get in trouble for what you've done wrong. So you just tell one little white lie and you think it's okay. And some of them, it's not about the little white lie, it's about the rejection. It's about the pain of abandonment. Now, I understood when I was in Virginia that Natalie, I was the only person that she had to talk to about this stuff because her parents and her sister are always telling her those pretty words. Those words that you tell people who don't matter. Those words that you tell people that alleviate the fact that you just don't care enough to actually do something. Natalie and I were just friends. We were very good friends. That tends to happen when somebody rescues you from suicide. And yeah, I rescued her from suicide, and she did the same for me. Anyway, I'll continue what this lady had read, or had written. Um, let's see. She types, they may not carry out the same forms of abuse that was put upon them. I was severely abused in many ways growing up. I worked really hard not to become an abuser like that, but I did become verbally, emotionally, and mentally abusive towards others in my life. That's why I am in continuous therapy. Sometimes therapy helps, sometimes. But when you go into a therapist about abuse, there's supposed to be a mandated reporter. If it's ongoing abuse, they're supposed to report it. But I went to therapists about ongoing abuse, and well, they all had the same way of dealing with it. Move along, move along. Every time you tell me to move, That's what you're telling me. Move along. We don't want you here. Move along. We don't want you here. Well, where am I wanted? Not anywhere. I get abused over slander. I've had to do desperate things to try to get people to actually look at it. Do I really want to go screaming on YouTube? Do I want to scream for help on my Facebook? No, I don't. That's not something anybody should have to do. But then again, there's all these people that didn't want to speak up, that were fine with it happening to me because it was happening to me and not to them. God, I need a new back. But even more than a new back, I need this. This is instant coffee, milk, and sugar. It's cheaper than them goddamn monsters. Those of you who don't know what a monster is, it's obviously I don't want you guys pretending that I'm some sort of nut job or schizophrenic who believes in real monsters, which, by the way, is a pretty good cartoon. Monster Java. No, this is not an advertisement. It's me showing you that it's not some schizophrenic nut job thing, and those of you who want to try to twist it into it, well, I showed that obviously it's not some twisted schizophrenic nut job thing. Anyway, this lady writes, my mind is utterly blown. I know that you care for Natalie. From my perspective, she deliberately set you up. She was saying one thing to you while telling others a different story. I'm so sorry that you've been through this. I apologize for not being available to help you during this time. While I was reading the comments on your first video about Natalie, I followed a link to a YouTube channel, Anna Solves. This is what I commented on that sham of a true crime report. Watching this video made me sick. While you did relay the truth of what happened to Natalie, well, sort of, you really glossed over the injustice done to Sean. Yes, you touched on the solid proof Sean had showing his side of the story, showing that he was given the impression that Natalie was his friend. Then you go into the conversation Natalie's acquaintance provided to dispute Sean's side, his proof. If someone is telling a person one thing, then saying something conflicting and contradicting to others, it is obvious that person is mentally unwell. Rather than focus on Natalie's past, which played into her choices and behaviors, you play the stalker card and put the focus on Sean. Why? Oh, clout and fame. What a shame. You did a huge disservice to Sean. I think you owe him an apology. I doubt that you will see my perspective. It's not common for humans to admit and own mistakes. The fact that you would emphasize that Sean has Asperger's syndrome, which is no longer recognized by that German Nazi doctor's name, and it was a German Nazi doctor, so she is right, and claim he has mental health problems without proof, shows that you are not committed to providing true crime content in an ethical and compassionate manner. It is evident that Natalie took advantage of a man who was vulnerable. She played on his emotions, and when he started calling out her family for the abuse they inflicted upon her, she reacted in a very abusive and dishonest manner, trying to protect herself and her abusers. After all, they were her family. She attacked the very person who had been trying to help her. She projected on Sean what actually happened to her at the hands of the adults that were supposed to protect her. Now, Natalie didn't tell anybody that I was a child molester or a rapist or any sort of creepy stuff like that. Now, this is the stuff that her family and her friends had actually done to her. Her ex-boyfriend, Tim Beeson, had actually done to her. While I was in Virginia, Natalie had to cancel plans with me, plans that she had made, plans of things that she wanted to do. And she canceled them because Tim Beeson was calling her up and saying he was going to blow his head off because he couldn't touch her goodies anymore. The dude fucking raped her. What the hell did he expect? Did he expect her to just stick around? When she went to go get her dog, he held her down and screamed in her face, told her she could have the dog back when she came back to him. A lot of predators do this. My friend Anna Hunka, who was helping me to deal with the situation before Natalie died, she's dead now too. Her ex, when he beat the hell out of her and decided he wanted her back, what to get her to a safe place away from her abusers, and she missed the bus. Then she was going to try to get another bus, but she wasn't able to do that. And the reason that she wasn't able to do that is because she had a puppy. How strange. She's dead now. But let's get back to what this lady wrote. And I'm sure if you go to Anna Solves and you scroll through, you'll see it. And of course, people are probably going to go, "Oh, well, you probably just made that person up. You probably just made that profile. You probably are pretending," like they did with Joanna Taylor Smith, pretending that Joanna Taylor Smith was some fake profile that I'd been talking to myself on for fucking years. Yeah, no. Anyway, this lady wrote, "It has been over 4 years, and still there are people who are running with the homeless, mentally ill, autistic labels that were put on Sean, using it to justify further abuse against him. Your video plays right into their agenda. You could use your platform to tell the truth, to help a man who continues to be abused and traumatized because of the actions of a young woman who was mentally ill, suffered from addiction. You don't seem to know or don't seem to want to mention how Natalie's own father sexually abused her, started her on using heroin and other drugs, and forced her to sell drugs on the streets of Boulder, Colorado, and orchestrated a campaign against a person who was trying to help her the best of his ability. She was a very disturbed person. You do not understand or even have knowledge of what life is like for people experiencing homelessness. The same authorities that are supposed to help, serve, and protect are not safe for those living on the streets. Natalie would not want to get the help after all the failures she experienced through the system that was supposed to protect her. When every safety net, every resource, every possible support fails a person, desperation is all that is left. Instead of making a scapegoat out of Sean, use your platform to expose the system that is a failure. Natalie was not a victim in her own death. Yes, many people in her life failed her by not getting her help. Yes, her own family abused and victimized her, but she was the one who set up Sean, manipulated those around her, and orchestrated her own death. It is so evident that you have not done the proper research. Again, this video made me sick. I sent this lady a thing about a guy named Bobby Forrest who's missing. And she sent me a couple of screenshots because she got onto Sword and Scale and gave them the what for. This is what she typed to them, or what she's typing to me, I guess, about it. She typed, "I started watching the Sword and Scale podcast about the case with Natalie. You can see how far I got into it before I had to make a comment." Let's see, how far did she get into it? You know, she did make it 22 minutes into it. That's a lot further than I got. Let's see, what's the other one? Yep, 22 minutes and 29 seconds. Let's see. I started watching the Sword and Scale podcast about the case with Natalie. You can see how far I got into it before I had to make a comment. I've sent you screenshots of my comment. I am not okay with that time in my family's life that was traumatic to be used against you. Let's see. She also typed, "I can't even finish that podcast because I'm so fucking livid. I called their phone number where you can leave a message with your opinions about their show, and I left a fucking message. A very livid, angry message." Oh, that's scary. If you raise your voice, you must be mentally ill. If people raise their voice at you, it's fine. But that's That's the thing, you're expected to remain calm and happy and pleasant at all points in time. We got to deal with police officers who want to instigate situations. You need someone there. These guys are not our friends. They're not going to help us. We are their bread and butter. Okay? If they can't find the guy who actually did it, fuck it. We'll grab a homeless person. Nobody will give a shit. If we make it all public that this homeless person must have done it, then we make all homeless people look bad. And it makes our jobs of railroading homeless people for profit so much easier. I mean, the police, oh, that's the mentality that we have to deal with. Anyway, she typed about their show, and I left a fucking message, a very livid, angry message. How dare somebody use something that is still very traumatic for me to think about to punish their own agenda and to be a clout chaser? Not only was that time traumatic for me because my son went missing, but also because I was in a situation that involved being held against my will, having all my family members threatened, all my social media and email accounts taken over, me being forced to use methamphetamines after having gone through 13 months of residential treatments and another 13 months of working hard on my sobriety. I was trafficked so that he could get drugs. And when my son went missing, this man told me it was because my son hated me and he wanted nothing to do with me. This is a horrible time in my life that I still haven't been able to process in therapy. And for these fucking idiots to use that event in my life for their own personal gain without even verifying or talking to me about it is unacceptable. It's not just me. And a lot of people who were friends with me ended up having their Facebook accounts and Facebook profiles repeatedly, well, the same stuff that I had to deal with, of course, people pretending like I was some sort of creepy ass stalker. So they're going through every single post of mine and calling all of it spam. And a lot of these people, they're homeless. Getting an ID when you're homeless is a giant pain in the ass because you need two forms of ID to get your ID. They require a form of ID when your Facebook is shut down for you to actually get it back. A lot of these people don't have that, or they don't have the ability to send it to Facebook like I did. And so they didn't get their accounts back. And many of those people were angry at me. This is your fault. It's your fault. It's your fault. No, it's not my fault that we're all being targeted over something that did not happen. It's not my fault that a bunch of fucking assholes wanted to target you over slander. I'm not the one who was posting up a shit ton of slander. I was posting up the truth. And there's a lot of people who claim that they were going to come forward and claim they were going to speak up. People like Mandy Hughes. She's one of the ones that was very angry when she found out that I told the truth. Well, you know what? She had wasted a lot of my time. She had said, all right, well, we'll do this and we'll do this and we'll do this. And after jumping through all those hoops, she didn't do those things. And, her excuse for not coming forward was, well, I've seen those Natalie groups. I'm in those Natalie groups. And I see how people are treated, how they're threatened and all that. And, I got kids. Well, I get that you've got kids. So you shouldn't have offered to help. You shouldn't have said you'll go in with me if you weren't actually willing to go in with me. You shouldn't have led me on for months and months and months that you were going to go in with me if you weren't going to go in with me. And obviously, there's more than one Mandy that I know. Obviously, there's more than one Anna that I know. Obviously, there's more than one Natalie that I know. There are people that I know that have the same first name. So then I got people who want to go through and they want to do the cherry pick thing. Like they don't know shit about it. They just know what they've heard from these channels. And these channels are all spreading the same lies. So they want to come through and cherry pick for things that they can try to pretend. Like, no. If I'm talking about Shauna Talish, I'm talking about Shauna Talish. If I'm talking about Shauna Sinclair, I'm talking about Shauna Sinclair. Now, if you want to pretend that something I'm saying about Shauna Talish is something that I said about Shauna Sinclair, well, that's not my fault. But you spreading misinformation because you're a shitty ass armchair detective does affect other people's lives. When it comes to human trafficking, especially of the homeless, it is very, very real. Now, when I tell you about trap houses, there's something that's called a den mom. There's other names for them, but this is usually an older prostitute. Usually she's been beaten up enough that she is not pretty anymore. And her job is to administer the drugs to the other girls in the trap house. Now, the human trafficking trade, all goes through Denver and Boulder. Most of the money holders are in Boulder, but all of the major highways and or major interstates in America all converge through Denver. So when you're bringing up people from south of the border and trafficking them up here, they all go through Texas, Amarillo, places like that, and they're trafficked up to Denver where they're distributed to the entire country just like boxes of Rice Krispies. These are human lives that this is happening to. Now, a lot of it, these girls aren't willing to do what you want them to. They're not. You have to force them to take drugs. You have to force drugs into their system. And then once they're addicted, they'll do whatever you want. They're addicted to drugs now. And nobody's going to believe them because now they're addicted to drugs. Now they're addicted to heroin. Now they're addicted to whatever. There's people like Kevin McGregor in Cheyenne, Wyoming. This is the guy that I literally had to rescue Desiree from his house not once but twice. And because she was addicted to that shit, she stole all my stuff and went back to his place. I didn't have any meth. Now I knew people in town that I could go to and get meth. I knew that Andrew was fucking still messing around with that shit. There's a reason that I didn't take Desiree over to Amy and Andrew Witcher's house. Desiree said that she wanted to get sober. Now, of course, she's also an alcoholic, so I did my best with what little money I had. I did give her the alcohol that she wanted. Not as much as she wanted, but enough that she wasn't going to have a seizure over it. But the other thing is, when somebody's trying to recover from a meth addiction, they got to keep their mind busy. And of course, with me babysitting the kids all the time, I couldn't keep her entertained. I couldn't keep her mind busy. She was stuck in my fucking apartment by herself most of the time for about 2 weeks. Now, this stuff is very common. Now, let's read what she typed in Sword and Scale. She typed, the audio clip that you have of a video that Sean Schwartz posted about a friend of his with a missing child was in regards to me. My son went missing in November of 2017. Instead of doing your research to find out who he was referring to, you used it for clout chasing purposes. There was nothing suspicious about his video. Nobody from your production bothered to try to get a hold of me or any of my family members to verify who he was talking about. Instead, a bunch of people decided to take that information and run with it to make him look guilty of something he never did. I'm beyond angry, beyond livid, beyond hurt that a traumatic event in my family was used to further the agenda against Sean Schwartz. And the simple fact that you were unable to see that, let me see, next one, I guess. And the simple fact that you were unable to see that a very disturbed young woman went out of her way to set up a man for her death proves what you do not know proves that you do not know how to report true crime. You simply spin the narrative of this story to get clicks, likes, and fame. It is obvious why Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter have made the decision they have about your platforms on their service. I would tell you to do better as a human being, but you are old enough to have learned that already. Have the life you deserve. Oh, that's cold. Have the life that you deserve. You know, I'm glad that she's a female and she can actually type that. If I were to type that, you know what would happen to me? They'd pretend that I was threatening people's lives. They'd arrest me on bogus charges and lock me up in another jurisdiction. And then, of course, Mr. Boudet, because that's sword and scale, Mr. Boudet would be able to get a protection order against me by me not being able to go to court. This has happened on multiple occasions where the predators who are not cops that I have tried to turn in repeatedly to law enforcement, and they have done nothing about these people who have been playing head games since before Natalie was killed, some of them, and many, many more after Natalie was killed. And they wanted to play head games with me and then pretend like I threatened their lives. Pretend like I would chase them around the country. I'm not a deadhead. How many deadheads does it take to screw in a light bulb? None. They wait for it to burn out and then follow it around the country for 20 years. How many cops does it take to screw in a light bulb? You're not going to like this joke. None. They arrest the bulb for being broke, then they beat the room for being black. Obviously, that is not a racist joke. That is a joke about how police treat us. How you mean absolutely nothing if you're broke. Michaela Smalltown Babe typed, "Hi, Sean, how are you this morning?" I'm trying. She also typed, "I live in Utah. I believe you. Do you see my comments?" I do now. When I'm reading this stuff, I'm actually reading it. I'm not pretending. I have to click over to another part in order to read it. So anyway, she had typed, "Hope you have a good day." So I didn't see those comments because I was busy reading things. And she typed, "Okay, hope you have a good day." So she probably left before I saw her comments. She is one of the people who offered to help too. Now, there's a lot of people that offered to help that they can't because they're depressed. They're depressed. They're depressed. Someone died. Someone died. You know what? There's a lot of dead people. A lot of fucking dead people over this situation. And not all of them are dead over the situation with Natalie. Many of them are dead over the situation of the police doing everything in their power to hide their own crimes, to hide the fucked up things that they did by playing on the mentally ill tag. And you know, my friends didn't help by taking my resources for services that they didn't render and had no intention of rendering. So you got to follow through. Seeing the evidence, looking at the evidence, going through the evidence. Yes, now you need to do something with it. I'm not showing it to you just so you can go, "Oh, well, I saw it," and then ignore it for the rest of eternity. I'm showing it to you so that you're aware of what's going on, so that you know that my stories are true. And it is incredibly complicated. And a lot of the people that I've showed stuff to, they're like, you know, I've got recordings, conversations with them where they remember the stuff that I was showing them and telling them. But 6 months later, I mean, it's 6 months later. You know, they're like, "I don't remember that. I don't remember that." Well, do you want me to send you the recording? "You motherfucker, I can't believe you recorded me." What did you expect me to do? A lot of people in this town I recorded, they're not happy about it at all. At all. Now, Brent Jeffson knows that he was recorded and he still talks to me. And his nephew Jace, actually, I think they're cousins. His cousin Jace, he's another witness that I have, that I posted a conversation with him and me on the internet. And I had to do that from Cheyenne because I couldn't be safely here because of the police. But meanwhile, you just call me mentally ill and magically it's okay that these people have done the things that they've done. You call me mentally ill, it must mean that I'm hallucinating everything. Like Natalie Bollinger didn't actually die. Like I wasn't actually targeted. Like I haven't had all of these crimes committed against me. Like there weren't so many people who wanted to harass and stalk me both before and after Natalie's death. Like I'm pretending these things happen because I don't want to get in trouble. You know what? I've been locked up for trying to turn in people to the cops who are abusing kids. Rayanna Ingersoll is a perfect example. It's not that I didn't try to make those calls. It's not like I didn't try to get help for those kids. It's that it didn't do any good. The third time that I had made a phone call about Rayanna beating on those kids, and the cops showed up and were talking about how the kids weren't eating. No, those kids were not little, okay? They definitely had plenty to eat before they ever got there. Now, they wanted to claim that Josh Rayborn, he's one of the people who assaulted me and stole my things, but they were claiming that Josh Rayborn wasn't feeding them. I said, if he wasn't feeding you, you wouldn't be as big as you are. Sean called us that! Sean called us that! No, I didn't, but I will now. But then what were they having to deal with at the time? They were dealing with a drunk lady named Miranda who was in the camper next door. We're staying in a camper that literally the room that I'm in, Rihanna's camper would fit in this room with about 8 foot to spare. I mean, it's not a huge camper. And she's telling them, the bullshit. Oh, it's just us girls. Us girls got to stick together. Us girls got to stick together. Rihanna, you're beating on them fucking kids. Now, it was pretty obvious the third time that the cops show up and didn't even address the kids getting smacked. And one of Amy's daughters, she's got 911 already there and she's ready to dial it. And I'm telling her, hey, you know what? If you want to call 911 and you want to turn in Rihanna, I am with you. All right. But I got to tell you straight up that it's not going to do me any good to come forward unless you, the victim, comes forward. There's conversations with me and Rihanna about the situation, and she doesn't admit to hitting the kids. She doesn't. Matter of fact, they did eventually press charges on her for smacking them kids around. They charged her with hitting them kids and also with not feeding them. Well, that second one I can verify is complete bullshit. They were getting fed. Me and Rihanna were going without eating to make sure that Amy Spencer, aka Amy Kingery's kids, were fed. There's also a video on my YouTube here where it is Josh Rayborn. He is talking about the situation. He talks about how those girls wrote a judge to the lawyer because they didn't want to go back and live with their mom. Their mom was still doing meth, the last I was aware. Josh Rayborn admitted in that video that he injects that shit into his system. There's also the fact that, honestly, with all the meth heads that were over there at Josh Rayborn's house, when they were trying to get me to smoke meth, he told them I didn't smoke it. He asked them at one point If you're gonna smoke it in the house while he's here, smoke it in another room, please. So it's not like he wasn't being kind, at least in part, about it. But the fact that I've had to post all of this shit on YouTube that should have been in court years ago, this is just insanity. A lot of people are mad because I did record our phone calls and I did post them. And here in the state of Nebraska, that is legal. Now, Shauna Sinclair could have come forward. It wouldn't have been that difficult a thing for her to do. But that's the thing about people speaking up, is that I tried to explain to all these people, hey, stuff that I had let you know about, stuff that you were having going on in your life, stuff that you had asked me for help with, that I was trying to help you with. These nut jobs are using these as excuses to harm me. They're claiming that this stuff was me stalking Natalie, that I knew that Natalie had disappeared before she ever disappeared.
How did Sean know that early in the morning that Natalie was going to disappear? She hadn't even disappeared yet.
Well, because it wasn't about Natalie, dumbass. Well, Natalie's family wanted to pretend to be me after Natalie died. And what I mean by that is that I had been actively involved in helping to rescue missing people and people from shitty situations like that for years. Miss Jerry, one of the people that threw me away while I was in Virginia, I had saved her 7 times. I had moved her and her children on 7 separate occasions because of scary situations. Several of those situations, she had pretended like she had been physically assaulted, then later on moved back in with that man and changed her story. Me and her got into an argument over a racist post by her son, who thought that civil rights leaders should be punched in the throat by soldiers. Of course, I had a problem with that. Absolutely, I had a problem with that. And I showed him the reverse of the scenario. If somebody should go punch Colin Kaepernick in the throat, according to this post, if a soldier should go punch Colin Kaepernick in the throat for not standing for the national anthem for a country that doesn't represent them and doesn't give a shit about them, well, then yes, that soldier deserves to be punched in the throat. That's fair and equal. That's not saying to actually go do it. Whereas the post that Tyler Frericks posted up, he's promoting that violence. But if you say the opposing side, well, if it's fair to do that to Colin Kaepernick, it should be fine for Colin Kaepernick to do it back, shouldn't it? Oh no, if I say that, I'm a horrible person? Fuck no. So Miss Jerry exited my life at that point, and I blocked everybody else in that social circle. Lana in that situation is the den mother. No, she's not forcing these people to take drugs. She just smokes a bunch of pot. I mean, she's just a stoner. It's not like she's some big major meth head. And that's another thing. A lot of these people have mental problems that are not based on drug use. With Lana Engeline, it's about control. She used to be young and pretty, and now she's not. Now she's older and she's plump like a pear, and she doesn't get the attention that she wants, the attention that she got used to and accustomed to when she was younger. She doesn't get that anymore. But after getting used to it, she craves it. Now, then, these are the people who, after Natalie died, wanted to say that they were going to help me. Meanwhile, they were doing things that made a very unsafe situation. Also, one of the computers that I had full of evidence, Lana and Amanda decided that they were going to outright lie to me. They said, "Oh, you'll be back. You'll be back. You don't need to take everything with you, Sean. You'll be back." I knew that was bullshit. The reason that I knew that is because Lana does not handle rejection at all. She handles rejection as well as Jamie Curtis. Jamie Curtis thinks that she's the prettiest thing on the planet, and that when she is trying to get a man to have sex with her when she's drunk, that he owes it to her. Now, just like with Crystal Beauchamp, when I didn't have sex with her because she was drunk, she treated me like shit for weeks. Now, with Lana Engeline, she doesn't drink. I was crying. I was trying to tell her about the situation with Natalie so that she'd be informed, and she grabbed my hand and put it on her boob. I was not okay with that. No, Lana, I'm not sharing this information with you to get you all hot and bothered. Having sex with you is not going to improve my situation at all. So, no, we're not going to have sex. And the rest of the time that I was there, I had to deal with Lana Engeline throwing fucking tantrums the whole time. I got rid of those people as friends in 2016 while I was in Virginia for a reason. Let me give you a list of the people that I got rid of as friends while I was in Virginia. There's Lana Engeline, Amanda Engeline, Jerry Sparks, Tyler Frericks, Jennifer Frericks, Donnie Sparks. That's just to start. And then there's my dad, obviously, and Candace Bondurant. These are all the people that I got rid of in October of 2016 while I was in Virginia visiting Natalie. And then these are the people that I have to go to for help after Natalie's dead, and they're pulling the same bullshit. I had to go back through Montana to get that computer full evidence back. I went to Brenda Dickinson's across the street to try to get that evidence back. It took me almost 2 years to get that computer back. Why couldn't they just let me take it with me instead of lying to me, telling me that I would be coming back and that the computer would be safe there, blah, blah, blah. And then they get a hold of me while I'm on the bus going to my court shit in Colorado and throw a bunch of shit at me. Yeah, if a woman expects you to have sex, you really do have to have sex with her. You have to have sex with a woman who expects sex from you, because if you don't, she will make your life a living hell. Women are 11 times more likely to be stalkers than men. And being stalked by a woman is worse, because it's not just her, it's her friends. Oh, men this and men that. Let's get all up in a fucking tiffy and we'll go bash up his vehicle and piss on it like Missy Bruce or Veronica Bruce, who obviously that is a very mentally unstable thing to do. And don't get me wrong, Missy, at the time that she pissed on Sid Burke's vehicle, that was very justified in my personal opinion. It's still illegal. It's still wrong. Now, when I was trying to talk to Missy about the issue, she was drunk off her ass. Then later on, when I tried to address it when she's sober, she's like, I only had one drink. Like, fucking hell you did. That's kind of like one of the guys that I went to after Natalie was killed. His name is Christopher Tapp. We called him Fuzzy Bear. I thought he was going to help me. He wants to throw it in my face that he spent his last $10 to take me to his place. Well, you know what? He did spend his last $10 to take me to his place. And then he abused the shit out of me once he got there because he drank over half a bottle of Jameson. He's like, I only had one drink. No, the fuck you didn't, dude. Meanwhile, it's not like I didn't go to the cops. It's not like I wasn't trying. When I go to the cops, it's, you're a narc, you're a narc, you're a bitch, you're a narc. But when Natalie and her friends, after the group of them stalked me for an entire year, I can't even go to Boulder, Colorado and see my older brother for an entire year before she's killed. The only trips that I'm making to Boulder is to rescue people like OSHA and Bailey. It's not okay. I told true stories. Time to get back to this stuff. Obviously, I go through it a bit. I get overwhelmed by the sheer quantity, and I got to take a break. So I come here and I take my break and I tell you what's going on. That's not wrong. Obviously, I can't go to the police safely. I shouldn't have to pay out literally thousands of dollars for people to tell the truth. I shouldn't have to pay out literally thousands of dollars to go to a bunch of court appointments that if these cops had done their fucking jobs, instead of assaulting me, instead of going out of their way not to take my report, like this guy here, Cody Selhorse. Meanwhile, they write down wrong information on it. This one right here says it's from 6/25/2018. That incident did not happen in July. Sorry. Actually, June. I did make a mistake. Obviously, 6/25 is June. So that part is correct. And my most sincere apologies to these officers. Unlike these officers, between hiding the fact that I made a mistake and admitting it live on fucking YouTube, oops, I told the truth. Oops, I admitted I made a mistake. Oops. Is it really that difficult to admit that you fucked up? You'd rather destroy an innocent man's life because you fucked up. You would rather help registered sex offenders like Robert Warnick get away with it than admit they fucked up. And then there's people like Derek Thor Apodaca. There's a lot of people who know about this asshole. One of them is the lady who was just posting up on Sword and Scale. The lady who just posted up on, what was it, Anna Solves? She knows Derek Thor Apodaca. So does Jeffrey Ritchie, a.k.a. Insano, or a.k.a. Irish. That's what we knew him as in Boulder, was Irish. He knows about Derek Apodaca. He also knows Maddie Boa, and he also knows Natalie Bollinger. Now, with the Maddie Boa thing, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that Maddie Boa was involved in. Obviously, she's addicted to meth. Now, people keep trying to use the drug thing to try to go, oh, well, you know, he's on drugs. We shouldn't listen to him. He's on drugs. These other people are on drugs. It's shown in Natalie's Talks report that she was on exactly the drugs that she pretended I was slandering her by saying she was on. Now, the cops listened to her, didn't they? But with me, I can't even admit that I've smoked pot because they're not going to take a drug test. They're just going to write it down. Some of y'all see alcohol the same as meth. I see alcohol as worse than meth. Personally, from a town like this that's full of both, you really got two options. You can hang out with meth heads, you can hang out with alcoholics, or you can have no social life, which I don't have a social life. Obviously, and I need to trim up my mustache. It's going in my mouth. Obviously, I need to take a drink. My mouth is getting dry. These are common sense solutions. These are easy things to remedy. And yeah, I have screamed a lot. I have yelled a lot. But if you look at the situations where I'm trying to explain it to people as nice as I can, they give me those pretty words. Those things you're literally not supposed to tell somebody in that situation because it does make it worse. It does make the victim feel as if you don't care, that you are blowing them off, that you are brushing them off. Your pretty words don't help. If I'm coming to you about people assaulting me and the fact that I need someone to go in with me to talk to the cops, I need someone to actually go in with me and talk to the cops, not someone to tell me I just need to love myself, or a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, or you just need to man up. Of course, the hospitals, just like the courts, if a cop says it, it must be true. That's where enforcement is so important. Body cameras. The police in my situations were able to prevent their body cameras from being released by dropping the charges at the last minute over and over again. They were able to help my predators, such as the Bollinger family and Rose M. Kelly, that's Natalie's mother, and Danica Garner, who is one of Natalie's ex-stepmothers, and Rochelle Shelley Campbell, who is one of Natalie's ex-stepmothers. They went out of their way to make sure that I was incarcerated and prevented from going to court, prevented from showing evidence of what these people have done. And I have to beg alcoholics to tell the fucking truth. Are you kidding me? I got to beg Shannon Alvarado to keep her word. It shouldn't have taken her that long. She wanted to argue with people on Facebook. I'm showing you evidence, Shannon Alvarado. Show that evidence. Don't get all fucking drunk and go off on goddamn conspiracy theories. Please, let's stick to the facts. And that's the problem with people like Shannon Alvarado. Yeah, she was all sorts of gung-ho. But 80% of the time that we spent working my stuff wasn't me working on my stuff. It was her telling me stories and wanting help finding her friend Marnie. So I did everything I could to help her find her friend Marnie. I'm taking time away from the things that I need to do to post up about her friend Marnie and try to get her friend Marnie somewhere safe and find out where her friend Marnie had disappeared to. Okay, well, we found your friend Marnie. Can you keep your word now? No, she couldn't. All she could do was get drunk and scream. But it's wrong for me to scream back. I can only hear your conspiracy theories so much before, yeah, I'm going to cut you the fuck off. And obviously, I am referring to that as in, I am not going to associate with you anymore. That doesn't mean I'm not going to tell the truth about the situation. But there are people who are going to pretend, like because I said I would cut them off. They're going to pretend like I was threatening to cut off limbs or cut off heads or crazy shit like that. That's all my predators have to do is, number one, say things that are not true. And number two, coordinate to make sure that I can't even show up at my court dates. They don't have to show any evidence or any proof of any of the shit that they're saying if I'm not in court, if I'm not allowed to go to court, if I'm prevented from showing up to court. And again, how is this okay? I shouldn't have to go to schizophrenics for help. Their word's not going to hold up in court. They're not going to be allowed to speak any more than I am. I posted all this shit on YouTube and on Facebook because nobody actually cared enough to do what needed to be done. Like, sure, there were people who partly helped, but there was no follow through. There was a few people who did go to court with me, but they didn't make statements or write down any of the information that happened. Then there was people like Graham. Graham went to court. He also came here to Nebraska to my grandma's funeral. He was a part of that situation. Matter of fact, Scott DeCosta's excuse for not watching that whole video was that Graham said I was bipolar. No, Graham didn't say I was bipolar. He said I was autistic, you fucking moron. And of course, Scott DeCosta has done everything in his power to help that officer and the other officers who did not do their job get away with it. Now, this one right here, it says, called to Chapel Lake due to Sean Schwartz wanting to kill himself. Well, who called it in? It says, I spoke with Sean and he indicated he was not planning on killing himself. He just needed someone to talk to. That is not what I indicated to him. I indicated that I needed to turn in crimes. I spent 3 hours telling him about crimes that were committed by people in this very town. And this is what he wrote. 3 hours of telling him about the threats and harassment and abuse that I went through, and this is what he wrote. 3 hours. Called to Chapel Lake due to Sean Schwartz wanting to kill himself. No, I tried to kill myself. Miss Peaches, a.k.a. Kayla Trujillo, told me to use helium, so that's what I tried. Cody Selhorse drove right behind my vehicle parked out at Chapel Lake. Obviously, he'd gotten a call that said I was wanting myself. He saw me with the mask on my face, knew exactly what I was doing, did not try to talk to me. He saw the mask on my face. I looked right at him with the mask on my face. The helium that goes into balloons is not the same helium that you get for welding. It's got too much oxygen in it. You can't kill yourself with it. I know this from experience. Obviously. On that day, when it didn't work, and Cody Selhorse had driven over to the other side of Chapel Lake to watch me kill myself, then he wanted to stop me as I was leaving. After I've had a shitty conversation with Brandon, and Brandon's like, well, you know, if you were going to kill yourself, you'd have done it already. Motherfucker, I just got done trying. Now, Cody Selhorse, 3 hours, and that's all he wrote down. 3 hours of me telling him about my abusers in this town, and this is what he writes. No, by the time I talked to him, I wasn't trying to kill myself. I was trying to turn this shit in. After 3 hours of being down there, he wanted to appease me with a goddamn sandwich. I needed him to do his job. This is not his fucking job. This is bullshit. It says in his own words, it says, I sat with Sean for about 3 hours in the sheriff's office about what's going on in his life. Very non-specific. He doesn't mention anything about the situation with Natalie. He doesn't mention anything about the situation with Chris Kurth and the other guy who was there with Chris Kurth, who was threatening me. And of course, I try to chat him up and make him sound like he's nicer than he was at the time. No, Carl Snell was a fucking douchebag. But when he realized that it was all bullshit, he stopped being a douchebag. Carl Snell is the brother-in-law of Leslie Snell. So it's not like I haven't been trying to show you what's been going on or telling the truth. Now there's other things he screwed up on. I mean, it says 700 Hayward Avenue. That wasn't my address. There is no 700 Hayward Avenue, apartment 107. There isn't one. Not here in Chapel, anyway. It says connection is unstable.